Hello and welcome to yet another episode of the Partner Chronicles brought to you by Zoho One. This morning we are in Brisbane and we have Avon with us from Relevate. Let's have a splendid conversation with him and let's go deeper into the types of implementations he does with Zoho One and otherwise. Hi Avon, welcome today.
Thank you.
Please introduce yourself for our audience here.
Sure. First of all, kya hai Sangeeta?
Badhiya.
So I'm Avon, CRM Marketing Automation Specialist at Relevate. We're a Zoho partner. We're in Brisbane, but we've got people in Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, New Zealand, India, Thailand, and New Zealand. I think I mentioned that one. Anyway, I'm running out of brain space. We're growing pretty fast.
Yeah.
We work with a lot of big brands, and our goal is to be the enterprise partner for Zoho.
How has being a Zoho partner aided you in forming your own business, Relevate?
So I used to run another small business and, I'd work 12-hour days, 7 days a week, and it was killing me. So I thought, well, there has to be a better way. So I went and researched a whole bunch of stuff around automation and, things like knowledge management. It's annoying how if you've got staff and then that one day, I think I had like one day off after 30 days straight.
Yeah.
And I'm asleep and I get a call at 5 a.m., the machine's, running continuously. We can't stop it. So I had to get dressed, I had to go in, and then I ended up filming all the problems that you could solve.
Yeah.
And then the next time that happened, I sent the video link. But then I thought I can do this better. And I created a help desk, internal help desk. And then I put the videos on there and screenshots and all that sort of stuff. And I really saw the power of automation. I started to do more and more, just different disparate tools.
Yeah.
And then eventually I come across Zoho and I kind of did everything in one. And the thing is, all businesses need all things. And instead of doing, disparate applications that don't talk to each other, and then that becomes a whole other nightmare of app crossover and things that have to integrate, that I could kind of just bring in this tool and then start to go on a journey with the business. First we fix that, then we fix that. And there's no one magic bullet to anything. It's a lot of little things that add up to a very big impact.
For sure.
And that's what I kind of saw the value in Zoho.
Wonderful. We were having a conversation yesterday and you mentioned you have started expanding to India also.
Mm-hmm.
Share a little bit about that. How's that going?
So my business partner and I were in the army together. So we're a veteran-owned business. He was born in India in Punjab.
Okay.
And so he came to Australia when he was 10.
Yeah.
And then, of course, eventually joined the army. That's where we met.
Yeah.
We went our separate ways, found each other again 5 years later, and sort of doing similar-ish businesses.
Yeah.
It made sense to partner. So anyway, that kind of, at that time is when I also discovered Zoho. Mm-hmm. And we acquired another IT company. And then because he had the Indian family connections and he speaks all the languages,
yes,
we decided to go over and build an office. And so by building the office, instead of, we looked around for co-working spaces and they were all like really, really tightly packed. And we didn't want that for our people. So we ended up finding our own place and building it. The plans they gave us for the space that we have had 74 people, 74 seats. But we redesigned it to have 35, which is counterintuitive, but everybody gets, a lot of space.
I understand why you've done it.
Big screens, we respect them, we pay them well. And so by bringing that into the marketplace, we sort of, the staff we have are excellent. We've had them for years. We continue to work with them over the long term. And so we're kind of doing things a little bit differently. And so we're branching out into India, but we've also got clients in US, UK, a couple of other countries as well. And because it's online, we can pretty much do it anywhere.
Yeah. Taking away two things from the conversation we've been having. First, I would like to know more about your business being veteran run. Mm-hmm. And second, I want to know the number of people and the kind of expertise you have in India and Australia and working together. So let's start with the fact that you are a veteran run business. Let's delve a little deeper there.
Yeah, so I joined the military pretty much not long after finishing school. I started off in infantry, which is like a combat sort of corps. And then later on I transferred to intelligence and I only did that for a little while. And then I left the military, ran a couple of other businesses and I basically, what CRM is like doing intelligence skills, but for civilian businesses.
I've never heard that before.
Right. So you need to collect information on people. You need to identify patterns and trends. You need to try and manage, manipulate, and predict human behavior.
Oh, that's a very unique way of looking at it.
And then you need to report on that so you can take big actions.
Okay.
So effectively, it's like an intelligence database, but for your customers. So I kind of applied those skills. My business partner, he had left and done a computer science degree. So he was doing web hosting and infrastructure. He's a full stack developer. And when we met again years later, he was actually demoing a CRM. We saw each other and I said, you look familiar. Yep, so do you. We traced it back but the thing is, it brings an instant level of trust. You have really good values alignment. You have a really good understanding of, sort of how things should be done. You've got great examples of leadership, of team structures, of mission planning and things like that. And so we apply a lot of that into our modern day business. So, we're very big on building people, training them, growing them, leading them, and giving them a good sort of pathway forward. In that, we also met our lead developer, Jonathan, who has an engineering background, electronic engineering. And so that makes him really good with process design and with custom code, because a lot of the code is an electronics sort of skill.
Okay.
So he's pretty much our main software engineer. And then we've got a couple of others that are veteran as well. And then we've got the Indian dev team as well. And our people focus really means that we get to attract some great people. And even if, they come in and they're lacking some skills, we're ready to grow them. We train them. We put people through courses. We give people sort of like trial projects to have a go. We have an intern program. So yeah, it's kind of evolved over time, but so far we've got 25 staff across the world. A large portion of that is in the Indian office, but I find that a lot of times when people have, particularly for Australian consultancies, they might offshore to a company over there, and you have this thing where the person outsources to the person, outsources to the person, and you just destroy the supply chain. So we've gone over there. I've go and have chai with these people. I love Gulab Jamun. I like to ride Royal Enfields.
You also
speak a little bit of Hindi. I like biryani. Yeah. I can make goat biryani, and I've got all the Indian pots and stuff at home.
Impressive.
So I mean, if they're your team, we don't want people to feel like it's an us and them. We are one. In fact, if an Indian team member outranks an Australian team member, then they have to comply with that. We've come across this sort of inequalities, and we squash it pretty fast. So we're global first.
That's very well put. What makes you stand out among all the other Zoho partners that's out there? I would like you to share some insight on that.
So we often pick up a number of rescue projects. I don't want to speak poorly of other developers. There's a lot of excellent developers out there. Sometimes I think that you get real experts who are really good at coding or their one solution, and they'll focus solely on that, and they kind of miss some things on the periphery. Other times you get people who come in and then bring kind of like sell the vision, but then don't execute well. But broadly, a lot of the Zoho partner marketplace is, one or two man bands. They have limited bandwidth and capacity. Not that they don't necessarily do a great job. It just could be that they can only handle so much. So one thing we're trying to do is bring structured professionalism that is scalable, so that we can handle, enterprise level clients. That's really the place we want to play, because the jobs are bigger, they're more exciting, there's much more impact you can have. If you save an hour a day per employee, if that company has 10 employees, it's nowhere near as effective as if it has 500 employees.
And probably even the learning that you will come out of after solving their business challenges would also be immense in an enterprise company.
Well, and there's extra challenges, like now you have to do group training, you have to do change management, you have to sell the vision to the board of directors, and perhaps there's multiple stakeholders you have to manage as well. So it's more sophisticated. I enjoy it more. Whereas a lot of the times, we can definitely create a lot of impact for very small businesses. In fact, whilst I talk about enterprise level as a target, we have a concept of never leaving everyone behind. Our thing, we really want to grow the digital skills globally. So we've actually got an online community where we kind of allow smaller businesses, or even like as an aftercare. So as soon as people join and work with us, they then automatically get put into this online community. And that's where we can just answer as many people as possible. So add a video, add some content. And if you want to join the Relevate community, you can go to community.relevate.com.au or check out our YouTube channel. So anyway.
Thank you. Now, as a business owner, I'm aware that networking and having a business community is extremely pivotal. And I hear you run your own meetups. Would you like to share something about that? Yeah,
so I think it's important to kind of communicate and cross-collaborate with people that are not in your industry. New ideas come from innovative concepts and
fresh perspectives.
Exactly, So, someone's doing some process over here for, I don't know, agriculture, could be very applicable in retail sales or vice versa. So the networking is a great place where we try to, everybody keeps their business card in their pocket. It's about building deep connection, not doing hardcore pitches, because otherwise it's this faceless interaction that's about the numbers. And
impersonal, and it becomes all very kind.
And then we have like a knowledge transfer session where we teach something. So, we ran a session the other week on Zoho Social, which is posting social media and scheduling it out, and a whole bunch of business owners were able to put their, sort of marketing on autopilot, which gives them more time to go and do higher level activities. So it's a little bit of management stuff. It's a little bit of like just general networking stuff. And then of course there's the education piece, which is the main focus.
Which is the main focus. We just spoke about keeping marketing on automation and focusing on other areas of business. So I've heard from many entrepreneurs and business owners that for obvious reasons, they focus more on sales. Of course. But what is your idea of sales and marketing? For you, are they two different entities? Are they mushed together? Or is it something that you see provides value to each other? But now, how do you look at it as an entrepreneur?
So in the entrepreneur sphere, there's a lot of talk and noise around the hustle and grind culture, which is, pound the pavement, make many calls as you can. But the more we see people try to do that, the more we see laws and things trying to stop that, like the anti-spam laws, all these when you can call people, otherwise it's, harassment. You've got the little block button on your phone now.
Of course.
So I think there's a tale of two business owners. There's the one who's like constantly busy, rushing around and going crazy, trying to make 1,000 calls a day. And then there's another type of business owner that's generally a little bit more relaxed. They're a bit more protracted, planned, controlled. And certain activities lead to certain results, and they know they don't have to, go wildly crazy. Yeah, sure, they work hard, but it's just a different pace of operation.
Absolutely.
And it's early days, but I'm writing a book called Undercurrents, and
the first time hearing about it. I like the name, Undercurrents.
Because there's the unseen forces in business, right? I get a lot of business, and we do a lot of high value interactions with clients. But that's because we're strategic about the way we do things. And I think that by having CRM and understanding more deeper metrics, it's not about churning through the numbers. It's not about how many people can I spam in the next 3 hours to meet some metric.
Operative one.
Exactly, And so actually that would make an excellent marketing campaign. I'm going to send people tins of spam and go, I thought maybe you might like this. Yeah. So, but if you understand enough about your client, you know, who they are, where they hang out, what they actually resonate with.
Yeah.
A lot of times people default to demographics, right? Age, height, weight, region, income. But there's other things that gel people together. You've got ethnographics, you know, what football team do you go for? Or, you know, the fact that I said, you know, kia hau hea at the start is that we have some other form of connection. Yeah. And then you've got psychographics, the way people think. So if you can segment effectively and you can approach those people with the right messaging at the right time in the right way, it's totally different.
Yeah.
And it's so much easier to do business. And you can do that with the right segmentation, the right messaging, having the right systems in process, and not spamming people, building real connections that scale.
Let's talk about Relevate. Apart from like a thriving community and the amount and the number of people you already know, how does Relevate generate new businesses? And do you have a proper strategy in place, or is it more organic?
So yes, we have a strategy, and you can't just go and rely on one thing. You know, marketing is a layered approach, like an onion. In fact, if we take an onion diagram, the outer layer are people who become aware of your business, that are kind of not engaged in any way, but they know the name, they've seen it. So that's where, you know, your ads and stuff comes in for that initial view. Then just in from that, you have passively engaged. They might be clicking on, reading, watching videos. They're not engaging with you, but they are receiving the information. Then one layer in that, they're doing comments, likes, they have some form of physical engagement. Maybe that's very YouTube and social media centric. But say, for example, at a networking event, they know your name, they've shook your hand, they've said hello, shaken, shook, it's all right. So then after a while, you know, those relationships develop. And what you're trying to do is set all of these people with their own timeline in motion and then track and manage that forward. So you can do that at scale when you are using the blueprint, for example. My metrics inside the blueprint are more qualitative around the depth of relationship. So how well do we know each other? How do you feel about us? What's the deciding factor that would make you want to go and take another step? And that's much more powerful than, you know, trying to punch through 1,000 people or hitting the phones. That's kind of goes back to what I was saying before.
I'm very, very excited that you mentioned the onion layering of the way you looked at it. There's another perspective that we explain to people when talking about Zoho One, because you know, the depth and the breadth of applications in the platform. So there is a product management methodology called the Moscow methodology. So you started from the outer layer and you went in. This is more so you start from the core and you go out. So Moscow. So it's an acronym. So the M is for must solve problems. So the must solve problems of your business are the core of the onion, like the hard shell inside. And that is something you start with when, let's say we are talking about the Zoho One implementation. I'm making this generic because it's something that we use initially to talk about Zoho One to someone who doesn't know. So the first layer, the inside layer, is a must-solve problem, something that you have to solve. And like you were mentioning the other day, sometimes when you solve a bigger problem, some smaller ones already are taken care of because it was stemming from that
root cause analysis.
Root cause of it. And then MOS. So then the second layer of it is a should-solve problem. Something that is adjacent to your must-solve problems. And then as you go out, there's a could-solve problem that it's a nice to have, you know.
That's pretty much what we do in the consulting cycle. So at that point, we've already had a conversation. So there's many different paradigms to look at the same thing. You know, one might be from a marketing, and I perceive marketing mostly as external to the sales process. So you would have the problem aware versus solution aware. So we do a lot of content in a YouTube channel things like you're stuck because you can't get past 10 staff, you can't delegate effectively. The reason why is because you don't have a CRM. You can't have some central information.
Yeah.
And at that point, we're making them aware of the problem and putting a name to it.
Yeah.
The next thing is to be solution aware, to say, well, here's Zoho CRM, and that's how it solves this problem, this problem, and this problem.
Yeah.
And what you're talking about from that, these are the ones we must solve, can solve, etc. That's what we do in the consulting process. So we go in and interview a staff at 3 different levels, so top, middle, bottom, because sometimes the owner can't see all the problems.
Of course, yes.
And so you would go in, and then we basically document the whole conversations, and then we pull out all the themes into a kill list. These are the must solve problems, and then break that further into, these are the ones that we can solve right now, and these are the ones you've got to work on over the next 12 to 18 months. Because the other thing is you want to look at what they want to be in 3 years, 5 years, because it's what you do today will have an impact. And that's the other good thing about Zoho One is you can grow into it. Whereas a lot of times when people make recommendations, then they're not building on the right foundations. Yeah. Those foundations have to stay in place for the long term. Otherwise, you just have to do a rip and replace. And a project that you might have spent, depending on the scale of the company, 5,000, 50,000, 500,000 on, now has to be redone in 12 months' time. So we want to make sure that we get it right the first time.
Especially, I think this holds true when you talk about a product like Zoho One, because there's already so much in offer, and you could take a path that is not meant for you if you don't have partners like you to at least consult to them that looking at the business processes that you have, this might be a better and a more effective path. I mean, there might be multiple. But which one is the most effective? When I say effective, it could be time, it could be value, it could be money, it could be a lot of other factors. Which kind of problem do you solve first, like you were mentioning? So I think when it comes to a transformational product like Zoho One, it's much more important to get a bird's eye view, like you were mentioning, for a scalable solution, not just you rip something out, you replace it with something, and 6 months down the line, you have to redo the whole thing once again. Right?
Well, like Zoho One is a box of Lego. You can configure it in all sorts of different ways. And if you're trying to build a spaceship, well, I've built lots of spaceships and I can build a really good one. So let me show you how to do it. And then you're not going to have the wings falling off. So we've seen a lot of growth in the platform. In the last, I think in the last 12 months, it's gone from 60 million users to 100 million users. And in that time, we've seen a significant rollout of features. And so part of it is managing what we see coming down the pipeline because of our relationships with Zoho and understanding future product releases and the direction of the company. Now we can give more strategic advice to say, look, you're going to do this now, but I know they're working on that. So this is a temporary measure until you can roll out that. So it becomes a little bit strategic. And it's not that Zoho can't do a lot of great things, but sometimes the solution is so nuanced that we need to be very specific. And to your point before about building it the wrong way, there's plenty of people that come in and just use in general the architecture the way they think they should without understanding how the 4 main objects of a CRM, doesn't matter what CRM you're in, if you're not using them effectively, you're going to run into limitations. So we just try to give them the guidance on that.
And software is supposed to aid you to run your business better. And if it's not placed well or implemented well in your organization, it's just going to be counterintuitive. You are spending more time on fixing what's wrong with the software than you are running a business.
Well, half time it's not the software. Our unfair advantage is getting people to adopt software.
Okay.
Because if you don't bring the staff on the journey, and we often say, sometimes people go, oh, well, these guys offered it for this price and they can do it cheap. I'm like, fine. But the problem is you're going to have is, we can't sell you a car without wheels. There is a certain minimum viable solution for your team to actually adopt it and for you to be successful in the platform. You can throw something at the team and pay no money at all, and no one uses it, you're worse off. And then you probably got to rebuild the thing anyway. So getting it right the first time is far more cost effective than making a mistake and then having to patch it. Yeah, exactly.
We were having this conversation yesterday, like some family-run businesses, they do millions of dollars of business in probably a quarter and half a year, especially in India. They are still running, and you are getting to know that now every day. They're still running their businesses on ledgers, journals, and they have become so comfortable doing that because their grandfather started it and the sons kept on doing it. And only now we have been, especially in tier 2 cities, we've now starting to see the change because the newest generation who is running the business is realizing that the time spent on manually sorting all of these out, and it's a lot of work. Most of them probably are manufacturing and retail. And as you know, as an ACE implementer, it can get complex. Manufacturing processes can get complex, and they are just now realizing that their time is well spent on taking the business from, let's say, 10 million to 40 in the next 3 years, rather than spending time on the manual entries that they are doing on the age-old bookkeeping that they're. But the fact remains that it takes time for them to let their other generations know that we are pivoting. I think that's something it's changing, but it's a slow turnaround.
Two conversations come to mind. So, like people will go a long way, or saving money on software will cost you a fortune. So people will go a long way to avoid spending money on software. But one conversation I had was, this guy said, in his own words, I have no idea how much is being stolen from me. So if you have an inventory management system and a point of sale system, then you're going to send the purchase order to the supplier. They're going to bring you, 100 crates of whatever the product is. And then you're going to mark it off as there. Then you're going to see it through the till, and you're going to know exactly how much has been sold. But they know exactly then what site is losing money, which staff were on that day. They have visibility. And the other conversation I had was with a biscuit manufacturer, and he said he built some spreadsheet thing free using Gmail and some other things, and it was broken, and that was his thing, to try and respond to a whole bunch of emails. And he said, I know for a fact I've missed $1 million order because I wasn't on top of my emails. I said, yeah, but you could buy Zoho Desk to deal with your inbox. And you might spend a couple bucks a month, but compared to $1 million, where's the smart decision? So definitely, I think people sometimes put the cart before the horse, and they try to do things that have a short-term gain but a long-term detriment. So I think if we can change that thinking, and I think it is evolving.
It is,
But
exactly,
like you said, the old guard to try to keep it the old.
It's a bit glacial.
Yeah. But that's what education and transformation is about. And we'd pump the videos, we'd share the content, we try to educate.
Yeah, you show the value in what a software could do, not just what the product is doing.
Sell the benefits, not the features.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so you've been implementing for software for quite a while, maybe any software. Now, what kind of an approach do you prefer? Like, let's say a customer completely hands-on and learning along with what you are implementing, or a latter approach, different than the first one, wherein they tell you all about it and then they take a backseat saying, we trust you with the process, now delineate the software and let us know where to come in?
It's very much, it depends. We want to leave behind a legacy. We have a concept of working ourselves out of a job. So we want the client to learn how to do all the basic stuff, and then they come to us for the cool stuff. I don't want to be resetting passwords. I want to be showing them how to, write a custom function, or I want to write the custom function, and then, they can do 10 things in one click. So I think, and you think back to like in the old car mechanics, there's usually a sign there like, if I do it this much, if you watch this much, and like increasing prices, if you've had a go that much. So sometimes it can cause a problem and it can slow things down, or sometimes they'll get excited, go 10 steps ahead in the wrong direction, and we've got to rein them back in. And by them jumping in and out, it makes it really hard for the project team to keep a track of what's done, what's not done. There's extra liaison time to have to deal with the client. Having said that, I have a mode where we have like an online course, and it's a train model. So we will train the client over a period of sessions and give them homework and then come back in and check. That's the best from a adoption perspective.
Okay.
They walk away with the power of being able to use the system, and they become a much better client because they are more intelligent in what they ask for. They understand how it works. They don't, sometimes it's bad the other way. If a client hands you the project and says, you do it, they don't understand what they're getting. They don't understand what they're asking.
And they might not even, exactly. They might not even know what they need in the system if they're not.
My example is, if you've got 3 screens with 3 buttons on each screen and you want us to build that, we have to build 27 possible outcomes.
Wow.
So if you think about, if it takes an hour to build that page, the user experience is click, click, click. Great. So then they go, what did I pay for? Well, you paid for the 27 other outcomes that were possibilities.
You paid for what you couldn't see.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's awesome. That's software to a T.
Yeah.
You paid for what you couldn't see. I like that. I'm going to use that.
Okay. Off the top of your head, tell me if you can think of an interesting or a unique implementation that you have done that we can listen to it as a narrative, and we can delineate the process that shows how Relevate does implementations.
I think the obvious one would be talk about the case study we did the other day. So, they came to us, they had CRM and a couple of other apps. They had about...
Before you get into that, let's name the customer also.
Oh, sure. Happy Paws, Happy Huts.
Yes, Happy Paws, Happy Huts.
They had 26 other disparate applications that were not connected very well. And they were built into CRM the wrong way. They had about 15, 20 staff at the time, and they had live customer data in the system, and we basically had to break it and rebuild it. So we built the new version in the sandbox, and this is part of the change management journey. We actually had to train them in the sandbox version, show all the staff weeks in advance, have do a whole countdown, create videos, create articles in advance. And then on the day that we cut it over, we did the data migration into the new version. And then we were there with them on for that week, pretty much very hands-on, just to make sure that we solved any data problems, that everything was, last minute training, anything that they couldn't figure out or forgot or whatever. And then once we did that, the rest of the road was a continuous development cycle. So we prefer that because it makes change management easier. Instead of one big change, it's a lot of little changes over a period of time. And so change becomes a part of their culture. And it then means that we set up Zoho Desk as an internal feedback mechanism to us, basically. So as they ask, how do I do this? It raises a ticket. We get to see all of the tickets. We get to filter them down to the critical ones. We get to just write articles. If it's an easy, simple, just do this, click here, do that. And that then cuts like 50% of all questions back to management. How do I do this? So it saves management time. And then we reinvest all of every rollout into, either building a longer term dev list or into features that we can immediately deploy. And so it's been an exponential growth curve for them because it's been a lot of little, 1% improvements, and it's compound interest on that improvement. So we've now 1.5, 2 years on, they've doubled in size. They're looking to double again in the next 3 years. And we're talking about doing the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, because the thing the business needs when you're that smaller size is totally different from what you need at a larger size. And as you go, you're still navigating and figuring a lot of things out. So, and we've done pretty much almost every corner of Zoho One. So that's the other thing too, is some partners really only know like 3 or 4 apps. We know all of them. So, yeah.
Where do you think, or how do you think, Zoho One stands out with everything else that is in the market? Is there something you see that Zoho One has that others probably don't possess?
I think it's a value proposition. So like, I like to think of it in the class of competing with, Microsoft, Salesforce, things like SAP. A lot of those have gone deeper on certain features, but the breadth that you get in Zoho and for the money, like normally when you get like Salesforce or Zoho or Microsoft, it's add-on, and then you're paying like thousands of dollars per star. But you think about the motivations of the company. So the big American software companies, they're all chasing share price. So they're charging a lot of money for things that, perhaps in other countries are a little bit inaccessible because that might be someone's entire wage for what they're charging in Australia. And then on Zoho, they're like a groundswell movement. So they're providing value and it's being delivered to a lot of rising economies around Middle East, Asia, all throughout, India and now it's becoming a little bit more popular, particularly in small businesses in Australia, US, Canada, UK, because it's much more cost effective. You can still build lots of things, but if I want to go and build something in Creator as opposed to Power Apps, it'd take me 1/10 of the time because it's far less complex. And you can build, sometimes good enough is good enough. You can build some pretty wild things, but you don't need to be a rocket scientist to do it. So we kind of enable a lot of growth, because sometimes if you're a small company trying to be a big company, the big software companies look at you as a small company and go, you're not big enough for us, go away. And so they're kind of a little bit rude and it's a bit of a closed door sometimes. Unless you've got lots of money, then they're like, put on lunch for you. And I find that a little bit arrogant. So I like that, Zoho's more approachable as a brand, more human, more connected, and just easier to comprehend for most people.
Let's talk a little bit more about the capability of Zoho Creator, because how many ever applications Zoho One has now, there's bound to be gaps for some unique business processes that some unique business is doing out there. So talk to me about the power of Zoho Creator and maybe third-party integrations, and is Zoho One easier to integrate with third-party applications?
So before I go into that, I will say that we try to avoid custom as much as possible. We've seen all too many times someone's built some off-platform thing and then tried to integrate with it, and then it's just full of bugs. You then have a whole security problem. You then have integration problems, extra costs in hosting. So we always try to do as much as we can in things like CRM and Desk before we go into doing things in Creator, which is more cost effective and scalable for the clients. When we do go into Creator, you've got a lot of capability with portal licenses. So, we have one guy's subcontracts to basically does security cameras and has a whole 250 subcontractors around Australia. So if he was going to give them Zoho user licenses, it was going to be about $18,000 a month. Instead, we were able to develop a portal and then give portal user licenses, which then cost $250 a month. Because all they need to do is get the job, accept it, give feedback, raise the invoice, and then done. Like, they're not in the company. So it's much lighter on what they need to do. But we integrated it through to they had a special mapping tool that they had to use. We integrate back through to everything else in Zoho One using Flow. And you can, I think the things that you can do in Creator is very rapid build and testing. So sometimes companies that even want to create their own bespoke software will start them in Creator, and they might do that for a year or two, prove the model, change everything a million times, just drag it here, drag it there, delete field, add field. And once that settles for a while, then look to, doing a custom build. But I think it's relatively easy to learn. Perhaps the code thing is a little bit more than for most people, but now you can ask AI, give me a code for this, and it'll pop it in. So, and again, we try to minimize the amount of code we write, because every time you write code, it's a liability.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, APIs change. You know, a while ago, there was a change from curly brace to square brace in the lines of code. So the way code's written will evolve.
Yeah.
So we want to try and minimize that. But yeah, I think Creator's really, really great for being a gap filler.
Yeah.
Fill that function
Yeah.
that can't be done somewhere else.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Enough of the serious talk. I hear you are a bit of a YouTube star yourself. So would you like to tell the audience a little bit about what you do? What are your videos about, and maybe a few channels for them?
Yeah, sure. So I do videos on digital transformation, general business tips and tricks. And of course, we have a heap of videos on Zoho, how to use it, different, you know, setting fields, changing permissions, which also feeds back into the community. Every time someone asks a question, that generates a video request, basically. So we'll create a video on how to do that thing. So if you want to check it out, it's you just search for Relevate on YouTube, and you'll find it.
Thank you.
Please like and subscribe and give us a comment. Let us know what you thought.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Do you have any parting thoughts for our listeners before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think if Zoho can be a really, really powerful thing, and it's something you have to grow into.
Yeah.
But I'd encourage people to think what they want to do in the long term. So even if you go, oh, I'm too little for this, or I'm only going to use this app, or I have to be, just buy it. Like, it's probably the most value for money I've ever seen in any other platform. Everyone's trying to do some fancy thing. Yes, you've got these little point solution things that look nice. The button wiggles when you click it, and you might like the way it feels on your calendar, but your business does a million things. So it's kind of like death by a thousand cuts. If you do a lot of things, a lot of little things reasonably well, your business is going to be over there 10,000 times instead of, you know, you get a little bit and then you get integration problems, and then you have to buy another app and then another app and another app. It's just all there.
Thank you. Thank you so much for all your perspective. I really enjoyed our conversation today.
No worries.
I'm very honored to be with a YouTube star myself. That's it for today, people. Thank you so much for sticking around till the end. Avon has been wonderful, and let's wait for his upcoming book, Undercurrents.
It's probably a while after yet.
It's okay. We'll wait for a while. We'll wait for a while. Thank you so much. Hope to see you all again in the next episode. Have a good day. Bye-bye for now.